Hello guys, welcome to today's tutorial. So in this tutorial we're going to be finalizing this series. So we're going to create our notes route and the CRUD operations: create, read, update and delete. So but currently the last lesson we worked on the user routes. So we created the login, create user routes. So currently this is our server, so we can create a user now, and I can just change this to 56 because the email must be unique, and send it to the backend. So we get the user back without the password, but there is a problem here. There's a this user field, we didn't define it in our route validator. So I'm going to go to the user and then this user validation row. The username is not defined, and if we look at our schema here, we defined a username and we said it is required. So in this scenario, there's two things we can do. We can add the required field to the user validation, or we can remove this from being required. So what I'm going to do is I think I will add the field here. Just going to copy the name and replace this, and I'm going to make it an optional field. I'm going to say is optional. I think is that it. I'll just say optional. So this is an optional field, but here is not optional. So to make it optional here, I'm going to remove required and make it false. So I'm going to save that. So let's go back. We should be able to remove this and change the email here, and without it, we should be able to create a user. Let's see, we can create a user without a username. So now to today's topic. So we want to define the user route. Now we have the user route here. So the next thing we want to do is the to do route. So we need to create the route for the to do. So the first thing we want to always do is to work on the service. We need to create a service for the to do. So I'm going to create a folder instead, call it to do's, and then create a to do dot services service dot js. So but I'm going to install some packages. I formatted my system, I reset my system, so that's why my code editor is looking all new. So I'm going to install some new. First of all, let me see, I think material icon. Material icons. Let me see, let me install this one. So okay, yeah, this is the one I'm looking for. I'm gonna change it to material icon. There are a lot of extension you can install. Let me look for a node extension just to show you node snippets. I'm going to install this. And what else do I need to install? I think that is okay for now. I've installed some couple of extension before now. So just to show you how you can do that. So I'm going back to you can see the icons have changed here. So back to my services to do services. The first thing we want to do is also to create our schema. So I'm going to make the to-do dot models dot js, and then after doing that, I'm just going to copy the user model here and then change some things there. So what am I doing? Okay, yeah, so we don't need these methods. Get rid of that. I'm going to rename user schema here to do schema, so replace all occurrence. Now after I've done that, I want to remove this to do line here. I also want to rename user here to do, replace all occurrence of that. Also save that, and then here I'll call it title. We need the title of our to do, and we need probably title and then the content, which will be like a description. Okay, let's make a description, and then also we need the date, and time. So I can make this time just which will contain of the date and also contain the time. Let me just leave it as date, and then I'm going to remove this. Don't need this. We need the timestamp. I think that's all we need. And this date will be a date object, not a string. So I'm gonna write date there. Make it a date required true. Description is required, and then title is also required. So that should be true there. So, but we also need one more thing. How do we track the to do? How do we know which to do it for? For who? So we're going to add one more field, and that is going to be user ID. So which is the owner. We can just make it the owner. Now owner is going to be type. I'm just going to change that. We can leave it as string, or we can make it the object ID. I think I can leave it. Let's leave it as a string. So so this is also required. So everything here is required. This will contain the date and time. So I'll change this to timestamp. No, let's leave it as date. So it will contain both the date and the time. now that we have that, we can import that in our to do. So I'm gonna close this up and import it. Import to do. Then the next thing we want to do is create our first function, which is export const create to do, which will be an async function, asynchronous function, which will pass in our query, no, our objects. Or we can call it params. So just call it params. Param. Make it an arrow function. So right here we just need to return to do dot create, and we'll pass in the param. That should be params. So after we've done that, I'm just going to take this, duplicate it to save time, and change this instead of create to find to do. Now we need a query and the option query. We just need query. So here we pass in the query, and we'll change this to find one. We also need a find all. This find all will probably be used by the admin, but we won't be handling the admin implementation in this, just to show you how. So this will be find all to do. Find all to do. So I also like to add one more field here. So the to do schema, which will be a boolean. I'm gonna copy this and paste it right after here, and it will be a boolean, which is private. So this will be boolean. So required will be false, but the default value will be true. So but you can decide to make it is private, make it false. So if a to do is public, people can see your to do. But if it is private, then only those that are required can see it. So this find to do, there is a catch to it. Anyway, when we're implementing the service, the controller, we would implement for the is private, we would undo the edge case. So find all to do. I'll make this find public to do instead. Okay, let's leave it as find all. We'll implement find public and find all in the controller. So the next thing we want to do is handle for deleting the to do. So I'm just going to copy this and paste it here. So there's a mistake here. This shouldn't be find one. It should be find, just be find. So for this find, it should be query and options. Query, then we'll pass in options, which will receive also options here. Options default to an empty object. So here, we're going to delete to do. Okay, let's find and update. I'll just make it update to do, the name of the function. Update to do. And then this will be find one and update. What is happening here? Find one and update. So we need the query, we need the update and options. So this will be update and options. So right here we can pass both the query, the update, and the options. And then the last thing we want to do is undo for the delete. So we're gonna go here, paste it, and rename it to delete. Delete to do. So this is find one and delete. So this will just be the query. And now there are different types of deletes that we can do. Well, I think it's okay. We'll just implement the add delete instead of the soft delete. So this does not need a option and update. So that is basically it for the services here. Then the next thing we want to do is go to the controller here, create a new file, which will be our todo dot controller dot js. So here we want to bring in our services, but not now. I'm gonna save this, go back to my todo controller, and the first controller we want to do is the create to do. So export const, this should be create to do handler, which will be equals to passing our request. Remember, we must always pass in the request, response, and next. So here I'm going to also make it an arrow function. And then wrap everything in a try catch. It's best to always undo your errors properly when you're working with Node. So here I'm going to console the console. Okay, I think we've not yet implemented our logger. So we need to use a logger other than the console, the default. But for this, let's just use the console.log. So state error, then I'll just log the error. Now when we've done that, the next thing we want to do here is when we're creating a to-do, we want to first get the parameters from the body. So here we need to get, first of all, I'm just going to get the whole body. So the const body will be equals to get from the request. This will be body, get body from request, and then from the body I'm going to destructure. Okay, I really don't need to destructure here, since we are going to be validating the body coming in. We don't really need to, we can just pass it directly to the create function. So here I'm going to just create the user. I will const to do equals to create to do from services. We're importing it from services, and then we'll pass in the body. So then if, and then we can send the response. So if there's an error, we can check and make sure that we have a response. If no to do, then we want to send a return response to the user. Response dot that will be response or status. So I'm just going to say let me return a 500 error. See .json. The message to do not created. I can say, oops, something went wrong. And to do not created. So otherwise, we want to send a response. We want to return a response. Status 200 with a JSON message saying to do created successfully. And then here I'm just going to return the to do to the user. So here also we need to return a response. So here we return a response. Response status of 500 with a JSON message saying oops, something went wrong. Server error. So now this is our create to do handler. So the next one we want to do is the get, to get a specific to do. So I'm gonna just copy that, paste it, rename this to get single to do handler. So here in the body, so we're going to look for a param dot id, and when we get the id, we'll use it to look for, to check if the, to fetch, let's fetch for the to do. So find to do, and here we're going to pass in an object with id underscore id, which is the id of the to do underscore id. Change this to do id, and copy this here and paste it here. Then the next thing, pass in the options, which is empty. We don't even need to pass this in. We don't need to pass it in, since by default it takes that up. So if no to do, I'm going to say I'm going to use a so what I'm going to say here is so I'm going to say to do with id of, then passing the id, to do id does not exist, so that's going to be 400 or 404 not found. So the absence, in the case where we have a to do, say to resource successfully obtained, passing the to do. So here we have the 200 with JSON and our to do. So but there's a catch to it. We only want to fetch this to do if it's a public route, or if the person requesting is the owner of the to do. So how do we do that? We need to first get the user, that is the person requesting for the route, and we can get that from request.user. But we haven't attached the user to the request yet, because we are not yet deserializing the token once it is sent to the backend. So we need to undo that. So right now, we don't have any private route, but very soon we'll have some routes that can only be accessed when a user logs in, if a user has logged in. So we need to undo that. So to handle that, we will go to our middleware, and we need to specify inside this middleware. We'll create a file called serialize user. That is how we are trying to get our user from our request. Serialize user.js. So now that I've done that, we need to now, I'll just paste the code and explain what it does. So basically, this is a function that will pass in the request, the response, and the next middleware in the function, and then we are trying to get the access token from the authorization headers.authorization. We are trying to look for the bearer to get the bearer's the access token. We are removing the bearer so that we can get the access token, and also get the refresh token. You can see from x.refresh as the header. So if no access token, we are going to log no access token and return next. But if there is access token, we will decode the access token and the expire to see if it's expired. We also, from the token, from the decode function, which is imported from utils.jwt. I think we've done that already, so I'm going to cut this out here and re-import it so that it will. We did that in the previous class, yes, right here. You can see the decode, so we extract the decode and the expired. So if the decode exists, decoded token exists, we attach it to the user object. That is the JWT we just decoded, the access token we decoded. Remember, we pass in the access token to this decode function. Let's open this up. You can see what it does is just decode the token with the private key, that we've set in our env. So and then it also sets if it's valid to true, return valid, or expired as false, and it returns the decoded token also. So that is what we are doing here. So if it exists, we attach the user to the request, else we move to the next middleware. Then we check if it is expired. If expired is true, what we're going to do is, and we have a refresh token. Remember our refresh token, we are passing it here as our x refresh header. So if we have a refresh token, we are going to reissue a access token with a refresh token. I'm not sure if we have it. I think we implemented this, but I'm going to re-import it because I pasted this. I don't think they are of the same file folders. So I'm going to re-import it. Yes, we have that. You can see here. If we'll try to decode the refresh token. If the refresh token is not valid, we return false. Else, we will look for the user session by ID. If no session, return false. So if we find the session, we use the session to find the user. If no user, we return false again. So if there is user, we create an access token with the user and the session, and return the access token. So that's what we are doing here. So if we now have a new access token, we set the headers as a new access token. We extract the decoded and also attach it to the request as the user, and return to the next middleware. So that's just basically it. So I'm going to save this. Then I'm going to remove this because we don't have a logger here. I'm not using this TypeScript definition. So I'm just going to, and then look for log here, change it to console.log, console.log, change this also, okay, this is also console.log. So that's just it. Basically, we'll save that. To do models, I'm going to save this. So we want to now make use of this as a middleware. So we want to apply it to all our routes, either private or public. So once you are hitting the endpoint, it will try to decode, and see if you have a token or not. So we can do that by going to our app.js, and in our app.js, we'll just apply it as a master middleware. So I'm going to attach it here. I'm going to import the deserialized user here, import it here, and save it. So now that we have saved it, we want to go back to our to-do here, and we want to get the user from the request. So if the user exists, let's const user equals to get from request. I want to get the user. So after getting the user, we want to check the user, if the user ID matches the first thing we want to do is here, if there's no, then we want to check if this is a private, if it's owned by this user. So that's what we want to check first. If it's not owned by the user, and the to-do is a private to-do, then we'll send a error message. So if to-do dot underscore ID, I'm going to cast this to string by wrapping it in a string converter. So if is equals to also string converter user dot underscore ID. So if it is not equals to, they are not equals to themselves, or if they are not equals to themselves, and that should be and to do dot to do dot is private is private. If they are not, and to do is private, then we want to return a response. So what we'll do here is return. I'm just going to copy this. And paste it here. Change this to unauthorized. That should be for what code is unauthorized again? That should be 401 or something. That should be, I think it's 4, yeah, it's 4, unauthorized is 401, so it's 401. And then let me put this in the next line. You do not have the, you do not have the required permission to access this resource. So this should be all. So you have to be either the user or the to do is private, is public, before you can access this resource. So if you are not the user and to do is not, and to do is private, then you can't access the resource. So that is that for this implementation. Now the next thing we need to do here is, we've done for create, for get, we need to also get all to do. For example, all to do that are public. So when you say get all or get public to do's, public to do's. So we don't need the user here. Okay, I think we might need that. And we are going to do find all to do's. So we're going to do find all to do, and then here is going to be where is private is false. So we get to do's where all where is private is false, get all to do's it is private, and then we also want to get the user to do that are private. So const user to do. Remember, we've already gotten all that is public, so even the users to do that are public are already part of it. So we can also get the user to do that are private now. So I'll just do the same, find all to do. I'm just going to copy this and change the parameter to true. Where is private is true. So we can put a or here instead of having two commands. We can put a or there. So to use the OR operators, I'm going to remove this. And I'm going to add the OR operator here. So I'm just going to add a $sign or, and then add an array. Okay, I'll just add it here. So inside the array, I'm going to remove this. It's where we'll put our queries. So we'll add the brackets and then add the query, comma, here, and then do the same the second time. We need the bracket first. Open and close bracket, and then instead of false, it's going to be true. And then save this. So here we're looking for where everything is either false or where, now we have to make it where user ID is the person's user ID and private is true. So we'll say where underscore ID is equals to user dot underscore ID, comma, and this private is true. So we are looking for where to do is owned by the user and its private is true. So so that is that about that. So if no to do here, to do with we just send oops, something went wrong instead. And change this to 500 error. And then the next thing here, you don't need this again. So I'll just make this plural to do's and have the to do. Yeah. So that is that about that. And then for the delete, I think the last thing we need is now the delete. So I'll just copy the first one here. And say delete to do handler. So here, instead of body is going to be param.id. Param.id. Then we want to send in for the delete. But before we do that, we need to ensure this is the correct user. It is the user that owns a to-do that can delete a to-do. So yeah, I'm just going to delete this and put in user here. Rename this to user. And then we're going to find the to-do first. So find to-do, and then change the parameter here to where underscore id is equals to user dot id dot underscore id. So then if the to-do is found, so that is only when. If no to-do, want to return a, okay, we already have it a response. This would be you are not authorized to, you are not authorized to delete this resource, or we can say this to do. So in the absence of that, we will now send for the delete. We'll now say this asynchronous function. There should be an await here. There's a mistake. So I'm going to add here await, change here to async. I'm also going to add await here. And here an async. The same here. Await function should be asynchronous. Async function, async and await. I'm just gonna see and make sure I haven't made any other mistake. So I got all the to-dos here. An asynchronous function, async await. Good. So here I'm just going to delete, call the const deleted. I'll make it deleted, and then an await. Delete to do from the services. I'm passing the underscore where I think owner. Am I right? Yeah, owner here. Where owner is equals to user dot underscore ID. So resource to do deleted successfully, and then here will be deleted. So we are passing this to do was deleted here. I'll pass in an option of new true, so it is sending the deleted one. New is equals to true, not equals to, that should be true. And then I remember I made a mistake. So here in the body, I'm going to destructure this body, and then I'm going to pass also the user ID. We need to pass the user ID as the owner. So here we'll say owner is the user dot underscore ID. So we need to get the user also. So I'm gonna duplicate this, call this user, and then get the user here. Remember the owner is there, so the timestamp will be automatically generated. And we're expecting the rest from the front end. So that is that for the handler. Let me see this. I think I need to save this. Now we need to bring this to the route. So inside the route, we'll create a to-do folder, to-do, and then inside the to-do, we ought to create our route. So this is route.js. So import. To make this easy, I'm just going to copy that of the user here. paste it, and then change one or two things. Change this from user router to do router. Then rename everything. So here I'm going to change this. No, this is not supposed to be. I was importing the wrong thing. I imported the wrong copied. So I'm going to come back here and paste it. Close. Replace all the user to do router. Yeah. And then require user. I'm going to remove this route. All of these routes. So I'm going to remove all these. I'm going to leave the require user and remove all this. So now the first thing we want to do is the create route. So we import the create to do handler here. But then there's one more other thing we need to do. We need to validate it, because currently we have no validation rule for it. So we'll go to our middleware validation and validator. I'm going to duplicate this to create the validation rule for to do. Change the name to do validation rules to do, and then I'm going to change the field here to match with what we have here. So we need a title, we need the owner. We don't need it to be passed. It won't be passed from the front end, like we handled it already. So this should be description. We need a description. Description is private. Yeah, it's optional. So this can be optional. Why are we making it optional? And that is because it is not required and it already has a default value. So even if you don't put it, it will automatically be true. So, and then we need the date. Then we'll remove this, So that's that. I'm going to copy this, close this. I'm going to import it here. Then execute it and call in the validate. That will extract the errors and send them back to the user if there is error there, if there's an error. So I'm going to import this and need to import this validation validate. Okay, that's been imported here. So now that we have that, I'm going to create the next route, which is get endpoint. So we are going to get a single to do. So this will be get to do, or we can just leave it as, yeah, let's leave it as get to do. So we really don't need this, but we can add a rule for it. Well, I don't think there's no need for it now. So I'm going to change this here to find, or what is the name of it in the controller. So I'm just going to move this to this side so we can have easy access to it. Create to do, get single to do handler. So you can choose to add a validation rule to it, but I'm not going to add validation because we are just passing the ID as a param. So this is going to be, this is not all, get to do slash, to be slash colon ID. So you can see this ID here. So it should be this. Save that, copy it, paste it, get single. So we've gotten the single. Now we need to get again, but this time it will be all. So for this get all, we are going to import the get public handler here, and then import it. So this, I need to remove this. You don't need it here. I'm going to save this here. So now the next thing is delete to do handler. I'm going to copy paste changes to delete, and then you need to import it and apply it to the router. So I'm going to import it here, and I'm going to save it. So now our to do is ready, but there's one more other thing. As it is now, it can be accessed by anyone. This route is not private, so we need to make it private. So there are different ways to do that. We can include the require user middleware that we worked on. Require user login, this as a middleware in this route. So there are two ways you can do that. I believe all these routes should be private route. You have to log in to access them. So to do that step, we're going to state that the to do router dot use is going to use the required user middleware, required user from the required user login file here. I'm gonna save that. So all these routes you can't hit this endpoint without being logged in. So let's now try that. So but remember, we haven't applied this router. This route just exists, but it hasn't been imported in the main router here. So that's what we're going to do next. I'm going to remove this to do here, and then write router.use. We're going to add in the route. It has to be to do route, and here we'll bring in the to do router, to do router. Then we'll save it. So that's basically it. We're having errors already. Let's see what is happening. To do boolean type reference hello. Boolean is not defined. Let me see. Did I spell it wrong? I think I spelled it wrong. Boolean. Let's see again. Get single to do is not defined. Single to do handler. So that is probably now to define here. Get single to do handler. Let's import that if it doesn't exist. That means we've not imported it. Now let's scroll down. We hope that's the end of the errors. Let's go back to the Postman, and then we're going to change this here. I'm going to try to access it without being logged in. create slash to do. No, this should be to do slash create instead. To do slash create. We need a body. It has to be raw JSON. Title. So the title, I'll say Hangout. And then I'm going to put a comma here. And then here again, I'm going to put a description. Description. It as Hangout. And then what is left in our schema. To do owner, we are not going to pass owner since owner is required. But I think we've handled that. So is private also defaults to true. I'm going to set this as public. So I'm going to say set this to false. Change this to is private. This to description. We have description and this should be date. So shift date. So I need to pass in a date string here. So you can get that by going online and search for that. So I'm going to say timestamp generator. Timestamp generator. I'm just going to copy this to this time and put this here. Let's send it. You can see it's telling us we are not authorized. So we're going to go back and log in here. Log in. Now we've gotten the access and refresh token. Add our access token. Go back to our new request here. I'm going to rename this request. I'm going to name it. I'm going to name it create to do. So go to authorization. Go to bearers token. Add this. I'm going to save it. Then go back to the login. Then refresh token. Where are we supposed to add this? Go to my headers. I'm just going to add it here for now. And then go back to my code. Go to the app.js. Go to the require user, the serialized user. Here we'll see. So we are supposed to put it in headers.xrefresh. I'm going to copy this. Go back to my postman. Rename this key to xrefresh. And let's send and see what it's going to refresh. Let me go. I'll copy this again. I was on the wrong endpoint. I was on the login endpoint. Go to create to do. Repaste it here. Go to body here. Come back here. Copy the X refresh. That was a mistake. And then let me save it. Go back to the login. Copy the X refresh. Go back here. That should be create to do. Paste in the value and send it. Saying not found. To do / create is not found. So let's go and check our routes. These are routes here. We have to do / create the post request. So I guess we need to change this to post request. And then errors, unauthorized, invalid value. So there is a problem. Let's check the validation rules. Is it correct? Are we making a mistake? Body. Title must not be empty. Description must not be empty. Let me just copy it and paste it here to be sure. Is private. Is optional. This should be small letter D. Date. Send it again. Something went wrong. Let us check. Reference error. Get is not defined. I don't know why I keep making this mistake. So I'm gonna copy this and import it from Lodash. Now let's try it again. You can see we have our to do here. Now the next thing we want to do is check our get to do routes. So I'm going to duplicate this again. Let me delete all these. Delete. So now this is going to be get all to do. So this is get to do / what is the name of our route? To do / all. Get to do / all. I'll copy that. I'm gonna paste it here. Remove this and enter. Not found. Get to do / all is not found. No, we are not passing anything. Get to do. Am I missing something? Yeah, that should be to do. To do / get to do / all. To do with ID of undefined does not exist. Okay, let's see what is happening there. Get public to do and user.id. So I'm just going to console log the user here. This should be owner. Where owner is. But despite the fact that I think there's still an error there. To do with ID of undefined does not exist. Let's console the user here. It's not getting there. It's not getting here. Save this. Go back to my route. To do slash all. I'm going to move this to precede this. Although that shouldn't be the problem. So to do dot get to do slash all, and authorization seems to be there already. X refresh is not here, so I'm going to go back to login, copy it and go back to get all, paste it. Can you see? Now we have our to do. To do's is already. So let's create another to do. I'm going to say hangout 2, send to the backend. We've created that. Make this one is private to be true. We'll send it to hangout 222. Good. Now let's get all to do. You can see that even the 222 we created, which is private also, to us is returned. So we get all other to-dos and we also get our private to-dos also. But since we are the one requesting for it, so other people cannot see our own. It's only their own and the ones we make public that they can see. Now the next one we want to do is fetch is this, which is the to get to do the reason why I moved this up is sometimes when you have two gets and one has an ID, is usually sometimes there's a conflict with some versions of Express where the two will be conflicting. And the way you can fix that is just to move the ordinary get without an ID to the top of the one with the ID. So let's implement this route now. So I'm going to duplicate this. And to do slash get to do. Come to think about it, I'm going to delete this again, just because I didn't save this. I'm going to save it so that I can have the token also with the duplicated one. Duplicate this. So now that we saved it and we duplicated it, you can see that our token on our headers is already there. So here I'm going to go back to the get or pick an ID, which is this. Go to get to do. Now change this all to the ID. I'm gonna send to do with ID of undefined does not exist. You can see we are still having an issue. Let me try this again. This is still working, but this seems not to be working. Get to do. So I'm gonna go into the handler here. This should be params plural. So I'm gonna change all occurrence of this param to params. Control H to params. Replace this and replace this. Save it. And let's go back here. So our server started. Just send. And you can see we have our to do. So the last one is deleting a to do. So I'm gonna save this also and duplicate. So if you go to the routes, the to do routes, you can see delete. This should be colon ID here. Colon ID. Save it. So let's go back. So and then the token is still there. I'm gonna rename this to delete to do. And rename this to get single to do. So to delete, we're going to change this to delete. So we want to delete this ID, which is what we got here, hangout. So we're going to send a delete request. So this has been deleted. We saw successfully obtained. We made the mistake there. It should be deleted. So do deleted successfully. It is eating this out, this handler. Those deleted. Save it. Let's see why it's eating that out. I'm gonna change this back to the route here. I'm gonna see. Okay, I'm calling get instead of delete. So right here we are still passing our authorization and our header. So I'm gonna send the delete option. You are not authorized to delete this to do. Why am I getting the message? Let me see. There's a problem. this should be not, I made a mistake, that should be owner user.id. Good. So let us try it again. You can see deleted. This is it. To do deleted successfully. So this is Hangout. If you go to get all data now, we are not going to see Hangout. See, if you see, there is Hangout 2, there is Hangout 222, but there is no Hangout. It has been deleted. So that is that about making a CRUD operation, a CRUD backend for Node.js. And with that, we have come to the end of this tutorial. So I would push this to my working repo and link it to the project below. So kindly like and follow my channel for more updates. So we've successfully built a production ready application. So you can go from there and extend it